I'm Vice Admiral Johnny Wolf, and I am a Somerset Bulldog alumni from the class of 1984. It's amazing how much happened in the 80s. It was really a time of, I think you saw a lot of change happening in the 80s. From a technology perspective, the first shuttle, the USS or the Columbia shuttle went up in 1981, right? So here we go. We're entering a new world of how we looked at space exploration and what we would do. If you look at how the world was going on in the 80s, Chernobyl, unfortunately, right, happened in 1986. And that really started to define the world and how we thought about the power of what nuclear could do, not just from, how we had to harness that. And then just the music of the era, right? Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Prince, Madonna, all of those folks, right, came up during that time. So, and for me particularly, because of what I do today in deterrence for our nation and for our allies and the world, the Cold War was so prominent in the 80s. And of course, then as we started looking at the Berlin Wall coming down, the Cold War ended shortly after I got out of school. But nonetheless, how that defined our world, both how we looked at our relationship with Russia in the 80s, and then you fast forward how Cold War ended, the Great Wall came down, all of those things that we did, and now we find ourselves kind of back there again. So, history repeats itself, and I think the 80s was a period of history where there were some good things that were repeating, and quite frankly, there were some not good things that, unfortunately, we're finding ourselves back in again. The best class ever. I mean, is there any other way to describe it? No. So, but that is true. Yeah, I would tell you, I think our class, we were very close knit. I mean, if you look, there were only, I was thinking about, I don't know what the exact number, but there were only about 80 of us back then, right? And we really, everybody knew everybody. For the most part, everybody just, we kind of took that class forward, did a lot of things, whether it be sports, whether it be, I particularly was in the band. I was the drum major. If you didn't know that when I was there, which is why talking about Friday night football was always one of my most favorite things, right? Because many of my classmates were starters on the football team. A lot of us were in support roles for that. And it was just a great time of life to be going to school. So my favorite subject was math, and I is that a surprise? I'm an engineer, right? I absolutely loved math. I started thinking about a bunch of my teachers. I wouldn't say I had a favorite teacher. I would tell you, I had a lot of teachers and coaches back then that, because I played basketball, that really were impactful to my life. But I would tell you, if I had to give you one, his name was Glenn Burleson. And Glenn was actually the band director. Glenn had actually been in the Air Force. He was retired Air Force. He became the band director. And I would tell you, he had a big influence on my life, not just from what he taught us in school, but how he would sit down with many of us and take a lot of time to help us just tackle what we thought were huge life issues at the time. They were big for us, right? But to really take that time. And that was a great learning experience for me. So I would say, unfortunately, Glenn passed away many years ago, but I always kept in touch with him, even after I graduated. What I miss how simple life was back in the 1980s, going to school. It was a much different time. I miss that high school feeling of the building those relationships that lasted a long time, of having the discussions when you're in high school about how you're just going to take over the world someday. Just all those things that when you're in high school you can do, because there's not all of these other pressures on you as you enter the professional workforce and you do all of that. So I would say, yeah, that's probably it. Just that simple life of living in a small town like Somerset. Because Somerset still is relatively small, comparatively speaking. I miss that small town life where everybody knows everybody. When I graduated from Somerset, don't ask me why, but I just had this calling that, first of all, I actually wanted to go into the military, but I also knew that I wanted to go to college. So I had actually applied to the U.S. Naval Academy, and I also applied to the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy. So I got accepted into the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy in New York. And so I went up there, got 4 years of, I was a marine systems engineering major there. So I got my degree there, got commissioned in the United States Navy in 1988, became a submarine officer. So I went out on nuclear submarines for about 3.5 years, went back to school, got my master's degree in physics. And then I became a program manager for the Navy, specializing in what the organization I'm running now calls Strategic Systems Programs. And so the Navy really offered me an unbelievable opportunity to do a whole bunch of really great stuff, which I think is really unique about how the services work. But I would tell you, Navy in particular, there are so many things that we do in the United States Navy that is really, I think, is appealing to just about what anybody would like to do in their, in their professional career. So it's been a great journey over the last 34 years, quite frankly. In my current job, I'm actually responsible for running all of the nuclear weapons programs for the United States Navy. I also have a hat where I do a lot of work with the United Kingdom as part of the sales agreement that we've got with them. And so as the lead for that, I run those programs for all those systems that go on our ballistic missile submarines. When I decided, to your question, that I wanted to go into the military, in particular, I wanted to go to a service academy. I was told, you're from a small little town in Texas, right? Not a lot, not one of these big 5A schools. You're just not going to be able to compete. All right. So here's what I would tell you. If you've got a dream, never give up on it. Don't let other people tell you you can't. If you put your mind to it and you give it 110%, you can achieve anything that you want to achieve. So I would tell folks, find that goal, find what resonates with you in life, and never let anybody tell you that you can't achieve that. And just go after it as hard as you can. The other thing is, never underestimate how important your relationships are throughout your life. Not just in high school, but in anything that you do in life. Relationships are the most important thing that we've got. So build them in high school, build those lifelong friends that you can always rely on, that you can always call, no matter how good things are going, no matter how difficult things might be. And when you do that and you value those and you value the people around you, everything else just falls into place. I have been very fortunate, and it all, I think, started, when I was at Somerset, with all of the friendships I built. Again, all of the mentoring and teaching I got. So it's been quite the ride, and I have been extremely fortunate that I've been able to do this. And Somerset's always near and dear to my heart, always.